Hello, friends. This is Jerry Norton, and I want to welcome you to week 2 of our Elite 8-Week Academy. Welcome. You are in the new Real Estate Success Model program, the 8-Week Academy, and we are on week 2. And so I want to welcome you to this training, or look forward to this training. We have a lot to cover, and really excited because in this training, we are going to be breaking down and really outlining the old way of flipping houses versus the new model of flipping houses. And so again, this training is really designed to create the right mindset. I know some of you are going to be itching to get the meat and potatoes of actually finding and doing deals and building the business. But this background and the mindset of the new way and the new model of doing real estate is so important. So in the coming modules, you'll be learning everything it takes to build a $1 million a year house flipping business and everything that's part of this new model. But if you don't have the background, if you're just focused on tactical deal-making tools, you'll always be stuck in the old way, the old model. So the purpose of these first few modules, module training week 1 and now week 2, is to train and retrain your brain to be focused on the overall business and the strategy. The actual nuts and bolts will follow very quickly here. But before we get into that, we need to be completely clear, and you need to be dedicated to the new model of building this business and the new model of making money in real estate. Or again, you'll just focus on deals, or a single transaction or a single strategy, and you'll be stuck in that old way. Okay, so having said that and laying the groundwork, let's get busy here. So here are the expectations of what we're going to be covering here in week 2. We're going to be breaking down and giving a good overview of the old versus the new model of flipping houses. And in particular, we're going to be breaking down both acquisitions and operations. So we're going to be learning the old versus the new model of acquisitions. Acquisitions is finding, analyzing, offering. It's everything that goes into getting a deal. And there's the old way of doing that, and you're going to be learning the new way of doing that. Also, once you get a deal, now that deal becomes part of operations. It transitions from acquisitions, goes over to operations. Operations is simply wholesaling, fix and flip. It's funding, managing, marketing, and sales. It's everything we do once we get a deal to then flip the deal. And that could be wholesaling or fix and flip. So we're going to be breaking down each and every component of the old versus the new model of operations. And then, of course, we're going to be covering at the very end a glossary of the key terms that we learned in this training. And don't forget your quiz that should be below this training on this training page. And do that quiz. You're going to be reviewing all of this with your coach and make sure you get any questions answered, you get any help, and making sure you're heading in the right direction. Okay, so let's dig in here. Now, at the end of week 1 training, I talked about this idea of the old way of flipping houses. And the old way, it's inconsistent, right? The majority of people out there that are doing flipping, it's very inconsistent. It's sporadic, it's up and down, and it's only 1 to 3 deals a year. That's what your average flipper does, about 1 to 3 deals in a year. So very inconsistent. And it's very inconsistent income, not just inconsistent deal flow, inconsistent income, obviously, long stretches of periods where there's no income coming in, even losing money on deals. And so all of that happens in the old model of doing the flipping business. The old model is also very time intensive, right? It's a one-man pony show. There's no automation, there's no delegation. It's you, the flipper, doing everything, right? No business model in place. So in other words, you own a job, right? You own a job because the mindset is to go out and do a deal, not build a business that does deals. And so the new way of thinking, the new model of building a flipping business and doing flipping is to have consistent deal flow. And when I say consistent deal flow, sometimes I'll call that the pipeline. That I'm talking about 3 to 5 deals consistently each and every month. That's consistent deal flow. Consistent high income, meaning those 3 to 5 deals are high profit deals. So you're making very high income doing this business. And even perhaps most importantly, you have a great lifestyle. And why do you have a great lifestyle? Because you've put into place the right automation and the right delegation. Automation, remember, we talked about this in week 1. Automation is tools, processes. It's the non-human element of the business. Delegation is the human element of the business. So we're going to use technology and we're going to use people through automation and delegation to build this business the right way. And in other words, you own a system, right? You own a business. The mindset is a business that does deals, not the mindset of doing a deal. And so how do we do that? It all starts right here. This will become very familiar to you. I touched on this briefly in the week 1 training. This is the new real estate success model. It's not only an organization chart, it's basically a flow chart or a blueprint for how we build the business. And you can see here there's a line down the middle. On the left-hand side, we have acquisitions. Again, acquisitions is everything to acquire a deal. It's the finding, analyzing, offering processes in the business. Once we find, analyze, and make an offer and we get a deal accepted, we get a contract on a deal, it then transitions over into our operations department. And operations is responsible for either wholesaling it, that's step 4A, right? We're going to wholesale it. If we are going to keep it and fix and flip it, that's 4B. And so wholesaling requires a cash buyer that we wholesale it to, and then the actual transaction, a single close hopefully. And then funding, managing, and marketing and sales all fall under fix and flip. So that's operations. We have acquisitions, operations. And now what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you the old way, the old model of acquiring deals, and the old way of wholesaling and fix and flip under operations, and the comparison, and then how we're going to start to do this using the new model. Again, the purpose of this training, everything we're going to be focusing on in this training is helping you understand the strategy, the overall mindset, the new model, so that you don't fall in the trap of doing the old model. Very easy to slip into that trap and do it like everybody else and have marginal or zero results from doing that. So first, let's break down acquisitions, right? And let me just kind of tell you a story here, or lay out basically the steps of what your typical flipper does following the old model. So in the old model, step 1 is your friends refer you a great real estate agent. That agent helps you buy a house, right? So you meet the agent and they seem really smart, and you sign what's called a 6-month exclusive buyer's agent agreement. Now, what does that mean? It means you agree to work exclusively with that buyer's agent, real estate agent, to help you find a deal. And then step 2 is a few days later, your agent emails you a 2-bedroom distressed house for sale right in town for $99,900. That's the asking price. And so what do? You go look at the house with your agent, and he tells you that this is a good deal and it's going to sell fast and that you should offer $94,000. So your agent writes up and submits an offer for $94,000. In step 5, the seller counters at $96,000. Remember, it's listed for $99,900. The seller counters at $96,000, and your agent suggests you take it since you're still getting a discount. And remember, it's a, quote, good deal. All right, and step 6, at closing, your agent gets paid a 3% real estate commission, because that's what real estate agents typically get paid, or in other words, $2,888. And remember, they get paid regardless of your outcome on your deal, right? That's how real estate works. He's the agent, he gets paid a commission at closing. The commission is paid by the seller. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But this here, these 6 steps here I just outlined, this is how 95% of how real estate flippers do the business, following these 6 steps. This is a typical scenario of how it happens. Now, there are so many things wrong with this that I'm going to help you see and help you realize. Maybe as you've listened to these steps I've gone through here, maybe you've said, well, geez, that's how I've done it, or that's how I've always understood how it's done. And you're going to learn very quickly here today that this is not how it should be done. This is the old way, and there's a lot of problems with this. Okay, so there's also another scenario, and in scenario 2, this is someone who's gotten some education. They've gone out and taken a course, they've followed an expert or a so-called guru, and so they've gotten some education. They've learned that they need to do a few things differently. So the first few steps are actually pretty similar. Step 1 is you sign a 6-month exclusive buyer's agent agreement. So you go get an agent. Step 2 is your agent emails you a 2-bedroom distressed house for $99,000. That's the same. And step 3 is also the same. You go and you look at that house with the agent, and the agent tells you to offer $94,000. But you know better. You took a course and you took some training and you know better. So what you do now is you ask your agent for what's called a CMA, a comparative market analysis. And this is a report, and the real estate agent knows how to pull this report. And the report is going to get you what's called your ARV. Now this is a key term that you're going to learn today. After repair value. ARV stands for after repair value. In other words, that's what the house will sell for once it's fixed up. After repair value, very, very important term. You're going to want to learn that term and know it inside out and backwards. I'm going to refer to this term, this key term ARV, over and over and over again throughout and as you do this business. So ARV again is after repair value, what the house will sell for once it's fixed up. So you know better now, right? So step 4, you're going to ask for a CMA. So the agent is going to take all of the sold comps. Sold comps are just homes that have sold. And typically they're going to go back a year or 2 years in that entire city. And that CMA report is going to say, okay, based on all of these sold homes in the area, the after repair value of this home is $125,000. Okay, now very broad, very general. It's taking all of the sold comps and comes to 125. All right, step 5 then is you need to make sure that you run your repair number, right? So now you know it's going to sell for 125. That's what the agent told you based on that report. It's going to sell for 125 once it's fixed up. Well, now you need to know what it's going to cost to fix it. You're not just satisfied with it's a good deal, right? Which is what the agent typically will tell you or what the agent said to you. So you meet 6 different contractors out at the house, and you also do 2 trips to Home Depot and you price out all the materials, and you get a total rehab cost of $17,000. All right, pretty smart. You're going to figure out what it's going to cost you to fix it up. So you do all of that work and research and you find out that it's $17,000. So then step 6 is based on now your after repair value ARV of 125 and your repairs of $17,000. You're going to factor in $10,000 in closing costs. That's paying agents' fees and recording fees and all of the fees that are associated with buying and selling real estate. We'll talk more about that later. So you say, you know what, it's going to cost me about $10,000 in these soft costs, closing costs. And then, you know, I'm going to make a reasonable profit of $10,000 for doing this deal. So I'm going to factor in my profit. And so if I subtract out all these numbers, you determine that your offer price should be $88,000 for this to be a good deal. So what do? Step 7 is you tell your agent to offer $88,000. And he tells you, of course, your offer is too low and you're being unrealistic, but he makes the offer reluctantly anyway. And step 8 is the seller rejects your offer. And step 9 then is after about 10 offers that are rejected doing this, you either cut your margins and you come up on your price, or to get a deal, right? To get a deal, you come up on your margins, or your agent decides to stop working with you because he's tired of making lowball offers that don't get accepted. So these 2 different levels or these 2 different scenarios of how the typical old model of doing fix and flip, I've seen this over and over and over again. The first one I showed you was how flippers come that don't have any education. And the second model here that I showed you is how flippers come to me that have gotten some education. Both of these models are incorrect. It's the old way of doing it, and it's the incorrect way of doing it. And most come to me very frustrated, very burned out because of following this old model. Now, it is true that the process for acquisitions, there's a 4-step process. There's finding leads, right? There's analyzing those leads. There's making offers on those leads. And then there's getting contracts, getting deals accepted. And so what I've built and what is the new model of making money in real estate is the deal acquisition perpetuator. You can see over here, it's step 1 is finding. We're going to talk about this. Then we go to analyzing. Then over 3 over at the top left is offering in order to get a deal. So you can see in red is finding, in green is analyzing, 3 is offering, and the middle is where we get deals accepted. And so now what we're going to do is I'm going to break down for you each one of these departments, finding, analyzing, offering to get a deal. and we're going to be going through then specifically the old versus the new way of each of these, finding, analyzing, offering to get a deal. And this is all part of our acquisitions. So first, when it comes to step one of finding, we call that lead generation, right? Lead generation is simply finding distressed properties and motivated sellers, right? It's finding a good lead is a distressed property with a motivated seller. That's what we're after. Now again, the old model is to follow one source for leads, and that's what we call on market. Now on market simply means that the property is listed for sale with a real estate agent. We call that on market. And in the old model of doing real estate and doing flipping, the only source of leads is from buyer's agents with on-market leads. So they're coming from the MLS. Now the MLS is the multiple listing service. And really what I want to do here is take a quick minute here and give you an overview of how real estate agency works. Because when I say on market, I'm talking about properties listed with real estate agents. So it's important that you understand how real estate agency works. So first you have a listing agent right here. You have a listing agent. And a listing agent is when a seller hires an agent to sell her property. Now this isn't just distressed real estate, it's any real estate. Whenever a seller says, I want to sell my house and I want to do it on market with a real estate agent, they hire what's called a listing agent. Now a buyer's agent is different. A buyer's agent is when a buyer says, I want to go buy a piece of real estate, and so I'm going to get an agent to help me in that transaction, to represent me in the process of finding, negotiating, and purchasing a property. So when you're working with a buyer and you're a real estate agent, you are considered a buyer's agent. So listing agent gets the listing with the seller, buyer's agent has the buyer looking to buy. Two different agents. Now, an agent can be either one. They can be a listing agent, they can be a buyer's agent, or they can be both. They can be the listing agent and the buyer's agent. It's more of the role they're taking in that particular transaction with a client, right? Now, the MLS is called the multiple listing service. It's a private listing board only accessible to licensed agents. It's where they collaborate and do, where just they're allowed to see that information. Now, later you'll learn that everything that goes on the MLS rolls over into public sites like Trulia. Well, actually, I'll explain that here in a second. So next we have commission. Now, a commission is how real estate agents get paid. And typically, the seller will agree to pay a 6% real estate commission to sell a property. Now, that 6% is divvied up usually between 3% to the listing agent, right, and 3% to the buyer's agent. So they split it between those two. So if it's a $100,000 transaction on a sale, then the listing agent gets $3,000 and the buyer's agent gets $3,000. But that entire 6% is paid by the seller. So if you get a buyer's agent to help you go find a deal, you don't pay that buyer's agent commission, the seller pays it, even though they're working with you. It's important to understand this, so I hope that makes sense. If not, re-listen to this. This is, in order to really dominate and do well on market, you need to understand how real estate agency works and the different roles between agents. So on market just means that it's listed for sale with an agent. Once a property becomes on market and it's listed, it now becomes public knowledge, meaning that Zillow.com, Trulia.com, Realtor.com, Redfin.com, all of these public sites, what they do is they take that information from the MLS and they put it on their sites, so now it becomes public information. It typically starts on the MLS and then quickly rolls over into the public sites. The point here is on-market leads are public knowledge. Everybody and their brother knows about them, right? Because they're on market. Now, what's the problem here with this old model of lead generation doing just on-market leads? Well, it's only one source of leads. So if you're just doing on-market leads, you're missing a lot of opportunity. And I'll tell you about the other sources of leads here in a second. On-market is extremely competitive because, like I said, everybody and their brother knows about it. It's on market. It's public information. It's out there. It's available and accessible. Everybody knows about it. And using a buyer's agent, the way that I described here in that story, it's inefficient. You have no advantage on market leads. and it's unnecessary as well. So you'll learn that following the new model, we do not use buyer's agents to get deals. It's really, really cool. Very few people do this. It's my new model that's extremely successful that you're going to be learning. So let's break it down now. Let's get into it. The new model of lead generation for finding leads has 3 sources of leads. Sure, we do on market, and we're going to get into that, but we also do, number 2, off market, and number 3, bird dogs. So let's talk about each of these. First of all, with on-market leads, the new model for doing leads with on-market is we're going to actually access and get direct access to underpriced leads. These are the best leads because they're priced below the market value. Those tell us that there's probably a distressed situation going on there, probably a motivated seller, because those are properties for sale on market that are underpriced, priced below the market average. Okay? So first thing we want to do is under the new models, we're gonna get direct access to those. That kind of cuts out all of the retail price stuff and lets us know right away what are the most likely best leads that are distressed, motivated sellers. And then we're going to use what's called the double dip technique. Now this is a phrase I've coined. It's specific to our new model of flipping houses. You're going to learn more about this. I'm just going to give you kind of the teaser here, which is no buyer's agents. We do not hire or use buyer's agents to get these deals. We're going to beat the competition to the deals following this double dip technique. We're going to separate ourselves from all the other offers in the way everybody else is doing it in the old model. And by doing that, we're going to beat out the competition. And we're actually going to get listing agents who have the listings of distressed properties with motivated sellers. We're going to get these listing agents to inform you about those deals before they're even listed, so you have an unfair advantage in the marketplace, a competitive advantage. Okay, so we have a very, very strategic way, a very systematic way of doing on-market leads in the new model. Now let's talk about off-market leads. What are off-market leads? Off-market leads are simply leads that are not listed for sale with a real estate agent. So this is when the seller is trying to sell their property on his own without an agent. It's for sale by owner, and the reason is because that seller needs an investor, right? They either need a quick closing, maybe they have a foreclosure coming up, maybe there's a lot of repairs and they need a cash buyer. Remember, cash buyer is an investor, not a retail homeowner. They don't want a retail buyer. They don't want people coming in the home. Maybe there's mold. The last one I did had mold. They don't want people coming in the home. They don't want a real estate agent. They don't want to go on market. They don't want to pay the commissions to an agent. There are lots of reasons why a seller wants to sell, needs to sell, but does not want to do the conventional way of going on market. They don't want to hire an agent and sell it that way. So what they're doing is they're looking for you to come in, solve the problem, solve it quickly, give them and they'll give up equity, right, for you to come in as an investor and buy that. So these are called off-market. They're not involved with agents. Now, there's a challenge with off-market in that they're a little harder to find. They're not public knowledge, right? They're not glaring at you in the face. So how do you find them if they're not public knowledge? So there's a challenge with off-market. You've got to be able to find them. Now, there are some free ways to find them. Many off-market sellers will go online still, like Craigslist is a great place, and we'll learn more about that. But there's also paid ways to get in front of these off-market leads. One of them is direct mail. Direct mail is sending letters and postcards, right, to these people. And the second way is what we call bandit signs. I'm sure you've seen these. These are the We Buy Houses cash signs that you see at the corners of intersections. These are paid methods to advertise so that a distressed, motivated seller who's off market, will call you about their deal. Now, what's the old way of doing off-market leads? Well, when it comes to off-market, the old model is, first of all, most don't even know how to find any off-market leads, so they're not even doing it. The majority of flippers don't even do off-market leads because they have no idea how to find them. And the ones that are, they don't know where to look or how to identify them online. So they don't even know what to look for, where to look, or anything online. And if they are doing direct mail, they don't know where to find lists to mail to. How do you get a list of people to mail to? They don't know what to mail them. They don't know what the letter should say or the postcard should say. And they don't know how to capture the lead. So even if the phone rings, they don't know what to do when they get a lead. And when it comes to abandoned signs, they don't know where to hang them. They don't know how to track them or how to capture those leads either. So as a result, most flippers just don't get any off-market leads. Now, under the new model, you're going to be learning how to find off-market leads, how to do it consistently, and how to get daily off-market leads, right? Many of my elite mentoring students are getting 10, 20, 30 off-market leads a day, right? From building it and doing it the new way. You're going to know exactly where to find and identify these motivated sellers online and how to communicate with them. When it comes to direct mail, you're going to know where to access the very best lists, the exact letters or postcards to send them, and how to screen and capture leads. When it comes to abandoned signs, you're going to learn where to hang them, how to track them, how to manage them, and how to capture those leads. Now, our third method for generating leads is what we call bird dogs. Now, bird dogs are simply deal finders. They find leads and they send them to you. These would be like referrals. So they know about a distressed situation and they tell you about it. They refer that seller to you, or they tell you about the property so that you can then approach the seller and make an offer, right? So that's a deal finder. Now, the other source of deal finders, or the other category of deal finders, are wholesalers. These are people who get deals under contract, and they can bring these deals to you that meet your formula and meet your numbers and are good deals, and hand them to you on a silver platter. It's awesome. I do so much of my business from wholesalers. I get great deals from wholesalers. So these are bird dogs. Now, the old model for finding bird dogs, they don't know where to find them. And so most flippers following the old model, the old way, don't even use bird dogs. They don't know where to find them or anything. They don't know how to create and pay finders. I call them scouts sometimes. How do you create scouts that get out there and find these leads and bring them to you? And they don't know where to find local wholesalers who have these great deals and get on their A list. Great wholesalers, they have a list of buyers that they take their deals to. How do you get to the top of that list so that you get access to their very best deals? I call that their A list, right? How do you get on their A list? How do you find them? And so so the old model, no one knows how to do that. They don't know how to find them and get on their list. So obviously under the new model, you're going to create dozens of finders. You're going to have scouts in your market looking and scouring the market for off-market leads and bringing them to you consistently. You're going to know where to find all of the local wholesalers in your market and how to get on their A list. So again, when it comes to generating leads, the old model, it's inconsistent. It's not enough leads. There's only one source, which is on market. And as a result, you have inconsistent pipeline. The biggest problem, the number one reason why flippers do not succeed in this business is because of an inconsistent pipeline. It all starts back with your lead generation. The new model is to create consistent daily leads from all three sources. So you have leads coming on market, off market, and with bird dogs. It is the lifeblood of your business to have a killer lead generation system. When you do, you will have a full pipeline, meaning you will be doing deals each and every month consistently, 3 to 5 deals a month, so that you can cherry pick the very best deals for yourself that you'll fix and flip with 100% funding. We'll get into that. And then you'll wholesale out the rest of those leads that you do not want to take on, maybe that are marginal or don't have the margins you want for the good fix and flip deals. Okay, so let's go back here to our deal acquisition perpetuator. We spent some time, we talked about finding, we talked about the old way versus the new way of finding and what it takes to really get all three lead sources. You can see here under finding we have on market, off market, and bird dogs as our three sources for finding. Once we get our finding department up and running and implemented successfully, now what do we do with all those leads we're generating? Well, that comes down now to step 2, which is analyzing. Now, analyzing is simply the process of determining the offer price to make on a potential deal or a lead, and it takes into consideration cost, profit, etc., right? So it's running the formula, it's running the numbers, let's call it. Now, running the numbers is the process of taking first your ARV. Remember, what's ARV? It's the price it will sell for once fixed up, and then we're going to subtract out of the ARV our purchase price, what we bought the property for, right? The cost to acquire the property. We need to subtract out our repairs. How much money did we spend to fix it up? And then we're going to have what we call closing costs. Now, you'll hear me refer to this. Closing costs is everything associated with buying and selling that property. So you incur costs, right? You have to pay a title fee or an escrow fee. You have to pay a deed transfer. You have to pay prorated property taxes. You have to pay real estate commissions. You have to pay all of these different things. Sometimes a transfer tax when you sell it. Most of the fees go when you sell it, not when you buy it. There's still a few fees when you buy it. But you have fees to buy and sell real estate. All of those fees associated with that we call closing costs. You also have carrying costs. Now, carrying costs is the financial carrying cost to carry a property. So if you're fixing flipping the property, it's the cost to buy it, the cost for purchasing, the cost for repairs. All of the cost for the capital of that property is what we call carrying costs. Now, we're going to dive in and break this down. You're going to understand this thoroughly as we go through the 8-week academy. But for now, I just want you to know that there is a cost to carry the property, right? And so we call that carrying cost. So you have to subtract that out of the deal. And then what's left after you subtract your purchase, repairs, closing, and carrying costs, what's left over when you sell it for your ARV is your profit. Your profit is simply how much is left over after everything is done. So let's say that you have an ARV of $200,000. So that's what the home will sell for once fixed up. And then let's say that the purchase is $105,000. Your repairs are $25,000. Your closing costs are $18,000. Your carrying costs are $12,000, and so what's left over is a profit of $40,000. Now that would be a great deal, right? That'd be a really fantastic deal if those were the numbers, and that's how that would break down to determine your profit. Now, because remember I said back here, let me go back to it, the purpose of running the numbers, what we really are trying to determine is our offer price, right? Because we want to know, okay, well, what do I need to offer? What do I need to buy this for so that it's a deal? So let's look at the numbers a little bit differently. Let's say that our ARV is 200, right? That's the same. Our repairs is 25,000. That's the same. Let's say that our closing costs are 18,000 and our carrying costs are 12,000, right? And let's say that we want to factor in a profit of 40,000. So now we're going to subtract out all of these things. That's our goal, to make 40,000. If we subtract out these four things, it leaves us with a purchase price of $105,000. So in other words, if we bought it for $105,000, put $25,000 into repairs, had $18,000 in closing costs, $12,000 in carrying costs, we would make a profit of $40,000. So subtracting it out this way tells us I need to buy this deal for $105,000 in order to make a $40,000 profit. So running this math equation, that particular lead, if we were looking at this as a lead, our buy price, our offer price is $105,000. Now, that's a quick overview of kind of running the numbers and doing the math. The old model for doing deals and analyzing leads is to physically, personally visit each and every property to determine the repairs. It's to meet contractors, right? Price out materials on each lead. It's to trust your agent on the ARV, whatever they tell you is the ARV, or spend hours looking at comps. Comps are sold homes. So you spend all this time looking at comps to try to figure out manually what your ARV is, or just whatever your agent tells you. That's the old way of doing it. And then you're going to manually calculate out the numbers for each and every lead and then make the offer, right? And so there's no proven, consistent formula for determining your offer price. It's very, very manual, very, very time consuming. Because think about it, if you physically, personally visit every property to look at repairs, meet contractors, price stuff out at Home Depot, right? And then let's say you're spending hours looking at comps to try to determine that ARV, and then you're going to manually calculate out the numbers with your calculator on that particular lead. all of that work just to make the offer. It's going to take a lot of time for every offer you make. Now, the new model of analyzing leads is to quickly determine the ARV and repairs on any deal, on each deal, without personally seeing the property and without agents or contractors. It's using a simple buy formula with our built-in profit, and it's consistent. You use it every time. Also, with the new model, you're going to learn how and when to do a quick analysis on cold leads and a more detailed analysis on warm leads and when it's appropriate to do that. Okay, now following this model here, the deal acquisition perpetuator, you can see here number 2 is analyzing deals. We have a buy formula, and we have a very specific way that we handle cold leads and warm leads. Our cold leads, we do a quick analysis, takes minutes. Our warm leads are worth spending a little more time because they're warm, and we'll spend a little bit more time doing a more detailed analysis. But either way, regardless of whether it's cold or warm, it's a very strategic, systematic formula and process for analyzing our deals. Once we've analyzed, now we have to move over to offering, right? So making an offer. Now, the old way of making offers is to only offer on high probability leads, meaning I'm only going to offer if I think I have a good chance of getting the deal. And then to only offer on a property once, so there's no follow-up, there's no resubmitting process. So if an offer is not accepted following the old model and the old way of doing real estate is to not have any kind of follow-up system to resubmit or offer again on that property. And to not make all cash offers. So most people following the old model make offers with a financing contingency. And so they do not make an all cash offer, so their offer is very, very weak if it's not all cash. Now you'll learn more about this here in a minute because I'll explain what that means. So the new model is to make offers on all qualified leads, regardless of asking price. Very, very important. You're going to learn how to do that. And it's to have a specific follow-up and resubmittal system on those offers. So even if your offer is not accepted, there is a follow-up way to resubmit your offers. And to make all cash offers, no financing contingency. Even if you're using financing, there's a way to do this. You're going to learn it so that you have a very strong offer that's an all cash offer. All cash means you have liquid funds to purchase the property. Doesn't have to be your own cash. It can be somebody else's cash, but there's a certain way to do that with a proof of funds letter and so on. So you need to be able to make all cash offers in order to have a strong position with your offer. And you'll be learning how to do that. So there is a process for making lots of offers in a fraction of the time. Okay, in a fraction of the time. And also under the new model is the 4 ways to get your offer accepted without raising your price. So how to present a strong offer. There's 4 ways to make your offer very attractive, and it's not by raising the price. Okay, so that's number 3, which is offering. So finding, analyzing, offering. And under this process of finding, analyzing, offering, we will start to get deals accepted. So this deal acquisition process, it's a process of taking a lead, analyzing it to determine the buy price, making an offer to the seller, and then getting an accepted agreement, an executed contract. And again, like I talked about, the old model for deal acquisition is you go out and you get a buyer's agent, right? And then that agent sends you a lead, and then you personally go look at the house, you meet contractors, you price materials, you look at comps. You do all of this physical, personal work. You manually run the numbers to come up with your offer price. Your agent makes the offer for you. The seller rejects it. And your total time invested is 30 hours. This is what most people do following the old model. 30 hours on one lead that is rejected. Now think about this. If you spent 30 hours on one lead and it gets rejected, how frustrated would you be, right? Could you see how this is not sustainable? Most people do this process and they do this for a few times and they go and they decide to get out of this business because they realize this is not sustainable. How can they spend so much time on one lead just to have it rejected? you will burn out extremely quickly doing it this way. Now, the new model is you're going to get 10 new leads from all 3 different lead sources. Using a proven buy formula, you quickly determine the buy price on all 10 leads without physically seeing the properties. You make a strong all-cash offer on all 10 leads, not just one lead, but all 10 leads. And out of those 10 offers, 1 of the offers is accepted, and you've spent a total time of 5 hours on 10 leads. See the difference? 5 hours on 10 leads, not 30 hours on 1 lead. 5 hours on 10 leads, you got a deal accepted, and you did it in 5 hours, in a fraction of the time. Okay, this is all about your leads to offer ratio and your offer to deal ratio. The more leads you get, the more offers you can make, and the more offers you make, the more deals you'll get. This is how we're going to do 3 to 5 deals in a month. It's all about enough leads and enough offers. If you're not getting enough leads, it's not going to work. If you're not making enough offers, it's not going to work. It's just a numbers game. You just have to be consistent with your lead to offer ratio and your offer to deal ratio. So this was acquisitions. You can see right here, acquisitions is finding, analyzing, offering. Under finding, we have on-market, off-market, and bird dogs. Under analyzing, we have cold leads and warm leads, and we have a different way that we handle those. And then our offering, we have on-market and off-market types of leads, and we handle those a little differently on how we make those offers. So that's it. That's our steps 1, 2, and 3, finding, analyzing, offering, all part of our acquisitions. The next thing we're going to go into is operations. So operations is the second half of the business model. Operations is either we're going to wholesale it, so we have to make a decision, right? We get a deal accepted, and we have to decide, am I going to wholesale this lead or this deal, or am I going to keep it, get funding, manage a rehab, and market and sell it and flip it? What are you going to do? Okay, so we're going to talk about each one of these now and how to do our operations and the difference between the old way and the new way. So the first thing that we have to decide once we get a deal, once it's been approved, we have a contract, and it transitions over from acquisitions over to operations, is are we going to wholesale this deal or are we going to fix and flip it? Now remember, this is now out of the hands of acquisitions, it's over into operations. Operations has to make that call, and they've got to decide, okay, well, what other deals do we have going on? What kind of bandwidth do we have right now? And you have to put that through the filter of what is the highest return on investment for my time, energy, and effort for this deal, right? Does it make sense to wholesale it, or is this a good deal that I want to take on and fix and flip? So you've got to make that decision. That's a different decision for everybody. Everyone's going to have different goals on how many deals they do, on what their profit margins are, and so on and so forth. We're going to get in more into how you make that decision as we go through the entire 8-week academy. But for now, just know that that decision needs to be made. Do I wholesale it or do I fix and flip it? And real quickly, remember, fix and flip is we're going to acquire distressed property with equity from a motivated seller. We're going to add value to the property by making improvements. We're going to do some sort of a rehab on it or do repairs. And then we're going to market and sell the property to a retail buyer for full market value and make a profit. And I shared in training 1 in week 1, a couple examples. This was a house I bought for $175. Put quite a bit of extensive work into the home and sold it for $725. Here's another one I bought for $145. Then I turned around and sold it for $320. Right? So that's your typical fix and flip. Wholesaling, remember, is acquiring a contract to purchase a distressed property with equity from a motivated seller. And then we're going to assign or flip your contract to another investor. They're going to basically pay you to take the position as the buyer, and then that investor steps in. We call them a cash buyer. They step in, purchase the property, and pay you a wholesale or a finder fee. And I shared this example where I got this deal for $32, assigned it to another investor for $55, and made a $23,000 wholesale assignment or finder fee, however you want to refer to it. So what's the old method of doing operations when it comes to wholesaling and fix and flip? Well, most investors following these old models, they do one or the other. They either do wholesaling as their only strategy or they do fix and flip as their only strategy. And they're limited in their opportunity. They're only doing one of the two ways to flip houses. And this is how most of the old trainings out there, they either teach you wholesaling or they teach you fix and flip. A lot of people do wholesaling first because it's the smallest barrier to entry, right? Which makes sense. There's no funding, managing, or marketing and selling really. It's just find a cash buyer, sign your contract, and move on. So because of the nature of that, most flippers get into the business and they focus first on wholesaling. Some of them, however, do fix and flip, or sometimes after they've done wholesaling for a little while, they'll transition into fix and flip. The biggest thing that prevents people from doing fix and flip is funding. They think that they have to have cash or capital to do fix and flip deals. They have to have their own money to invest in fix and flip deals. Now, the new method that you're learning and going to do is to do both wholesaling and fix and flip, right? To have both of those strategies, both of those methods of flipping in your toolbox, in your business. So for example, remember we talked about the $1 million model. If you did one fix and flip deal a month, that was a $50,000 profit deal. And then you did 3 wholesale deals a month, because you can do more of those since they're less time, energy, and effort, less work. And if those had $11,000 profit each, if you did that model right there, you would do a $1 million business. $1 million year per year, 1 year net profit business. All it takes is one fix and flip deal at $50,000, 3 wholesale deals at $11,000 each. That's all it takes to do $1 million a year. Holy cow, isn't that exciting? But you need to be doing both, because you're going to only take on those high profit deals as fix and flips. Well, what about all the other deals that are coming through your acquisitions, right? Remember our lead generation? We're going to have a lot of deals coming through. Well, we just wholesale those ones, 3 of those a month. So 4 deals a month, and we've got a $1 million business. So that's why we're going to implement both of those strategies. Now let's talk about wholesaling for a minute here. The old method of wholesaling, the old way that most investors do, is they have a very small cash buyer list. Now cash buyers are the investors that you're going to take your deal to, that you're going to wholesale your deals to. And so they have a very small list. It takes them a long time to acquire a list. And they do it by networking, manually, physically networking at real estate investment clubs, like they call them the RIA clubs. And it's just a very slow, tedious process to find cash buyers. The other thing with the old model is most investors structure their wholesale deals the wrong way. They do a double closing, and meaning you have to purchase it and then turn around and do another closing to sell it. We call that a double closing. I'll describe more into detail as we get into how to do this. But the point here is that it requires funding, it costs you money, you lose out on some of your fees. And the reason why a lot of investors do double closings is because of what's called a no assignment clause. A no assignment clause is in your purchase contract that says you cannot assign your contract. So that means you have to do a double closing. And most investors following the old model that have very small marginal wholesale fees, typically $3,000 to $5,000, sometimes even $1,000 to $3,000. They don't have very much margin on those wholesales. On the other hand, following the new model, you are going to learn how to and going to quickly build an active, large cash buyer list. So because you're going to learn where to find them, how to build your list very quickly. You're going to properly structure single closings that don't require any money. You walk out with a check. And you are going to also learn my LLC flipper technique. Now, this is a technique that uses an LLC to get around the no assignment clause. This is really, really cool. All of my students that follow this strategy love it. It's such a cool way to do wholesale deals. No one else does this. No one else teaches this. It's custom to me. I've been doing it since day one for 13 plus years now. It works really good. You're going to be learning how to do that, how to still do single closing wholesale deals, even if there's a no assignment clause on the contract. Now, you're also going to learn how to maximize your wholesale fees, get the most out of your deals, get into the 10 to 20,000 wholesale fee range, not the 3 to 5. Now, when it comes to fix and flip, there are basically three major functions in our operations for fix and flips. We've got to get funding, we've got to manage the repairs, and we've got to do marketing and sales for a retail buyer. So let's talk about each of these. When it comes to funding, The old model is to use personal funds for the purchase and repairs, right? Or if you don't have personal funds or all of the funds, to use your personal credit and go get a loan. And even when you get a loan, they're not going to give you all of the money, so you still have to put anywhere from 20 to 40% down. So this limits a lot of people from doing fix and flips because if you're following the old model, you have to have money, your own money into the deals. We call this skin in the game, right? Meaning you're either going to use all of your money to purchase it and rehab it, or if you're going to leverage that and use credit, then you have to have good credit and you're going to still put down big down payments. Now the new model is to not use any of your own money in the deal. We're going to get 100% funding, meaning you right now, regardless of your credit, regardless of your credit history, I don't care if you've got foreclosures and bankruptcies in your past, none of that matters. Because we're going to be getting 100% funding. We're going to get 80% of that funding from what we call asset lenders. These are specific lenders that specialize in fix and flip. They don't care about your credit, they care about the deal. So if the deal meets the criteria, which it does because we're going to do only high profit, high margin equity deals. So they'll give you 80% of the money for the deal, purchase and repairs, 80%. And then we're going to use private investors. These are just individuals, everyday folks that have money in their IRA or investment capital, and they'll lend you the other 20% so that combined you get 100% funding. And guys, this is how I do all of my deals. This is how all of my successful students that are doing this business, they're all doing the same thing. They're following this way of doing it, the new model, to get 100% funding to do your business and to do all of your deals. None of your own money in the deal. Super awesome. If right now you're going, Jerry, I'm really scared about how I'm going to fund my deals, I want you to know that you're going to learn how to do that. Don't worry about that. When we get into that section of the academy, you will learn all of the ins and outs of how to do that. All right. And then the old model for managing, the next step is managing fix and flips, is to do this all wrong. Everyone's doing this all wrong. They do some or all of the work yourself. You're there swinging the hammer, doing as much of the work as you can. You're doing the demo. You're doing everything you can. This is how most flippers do it. Or they'll hire and manage subcontractors, and they'll manage them directly and daily. So every day you're there, every day you're meeting them, you're running around for them. Sometimes you're buying their material for them. It's very, very hands-on with these subcontractors. And most investors following this old model will hire and mismanage the wrong contractors. So you get the wrong contractors in there. They do shoddy work. They don't show up. It's like running a daycare. It's horrible. And the old model, they pay contractors half up front because that's pretty standard, right? Contractors want half up front. That's the wrong way to do it. That's how you're going to get burned and lose money. And they under-renovate or they over-renovate. They get this wrong. They either don't put enough into the property or they put way too much into the property, losing money or leaving money on the table when you do that. They go over budget, easy to go over budget, and they blow their timeline. They have no timeline or they exceed it completely and take way longer to get their repairs done than they should. And this is very common. This is how most flippers do the business. Not you. In the new model of managing your fix and flips, you're not going to do any of the work yourself. You're not going to manage subcontractors. You're going to use a general contractor to manage the entire rehab process. You're going to only hire the very best contractors. You're going to never pay for upfront work, only work that's been completed. That way you never get burned. You're going to perform exactly the right rehab, not under, not over, but exactly what's going to provide the highest return on investment for that particular deal, each and every deal. You're going to stay on budget, and you're going to keep your timeline, and you're going to properly track W-9s, invoices, lien waivers, all of the paperwork that will protect you, not only from liens from contractors or anything like that, but also from the IRS, making sure that you properly pay and track your contractors and your repairers. And so that is how we're going to do it in the new model. You're going to learn all of that and do it the right way. So it's not time intensive. It's not burdensome. You don't have to be there every day, and you're not running around running a daycare with contractors. Now, the old model of marketing and selling, once your repairs are all done, is to try to sell the property yourself, right? For sale by owner, FSBO. You're going to try and sell it yourself because you want to save money. Or if you are going to sell it with an agent, you're going to do the typical 3% to the listing agent and 3% to the buyer's agent. Or you're going to undersell it. Usually most flippers, they leave money on the table. They don't know how to properly get the top of the market price for their property, and then they don't know how to manage their price reductions. So if you do need to do a price reduction, how to do that properly and in the right increments, and how to know when and how to do that. Under the new model, though, you are going to get what's called a flat fee list price. I'm going to show you how to get a top selling agent, the top selling agent, to list your property and sell your property, or list your property for a flat, usually $1,500 fee. Most people think I'm crazy, but wait till you learn how to do it. It's awesome. And you're going to learn how to motivate a buyer's agent who has a buyer to show and sell your property, to be motivated, to get out there and show it, to make an offer, and to buy your property. How to even pre-sell your property before the repairs are even done. How to get the highest price from buyers. How to motivate them. How to entice them to buy your home, and how to close quickly so that you realize your profit and move on to the next deal. And the old model, really, guys, when it comes down to everything we've covered in this training, the old model for acquisitions and operations, here's what people do. They focus 100% of their time, energy, and effort on acquisitions, right, on getting that deal. And as I've outlined here, that takes 3 to 6 months because they spend so much time on every lead. It's a lot of manual, time-consuming process. So they go out there doing all this work to find, analyze, make offers. Finally, they get a deal. It takes 3 months, 6 months to get that deal. And then they put all of their attention into the operations side of that deal, which takes another 3 to 6 months to go through, finding a buyer to wholesale it to, or managing the repairs, getting the funding, managing the repairs, finding a buyer, closing on it. And then when they're done with the operations side, they start all over again looking for a new deal. And they go through the entire 3 to 6 month process of acquisitions all over again. So you can see if it takes 3 to 6 months to acquire a deal, and then 3 to 6 months to flip it in the operations, you're only going to do 1 to 2, maybe 3 deals in a year. And it's going to be very, very time intensive, a lot of work, small margins, business. It's the wrong business model. Under the new model of doing this business, you're gonna do acquisitions and operations. They're gonna function independently and simultaneously with each other. So at the same time acquisitions is going on, so is operations. Your operations role is going to be getting 3 to 5 deals consistently every month, and they're going to do that each and every month independent of operations. At the same time acquisitions is going on, operations is taking those deals, they're wholesaling them, they're fix and flipping those 3 to 5 deals a month. And both departments, both functions of the business are happening together. You never stop acquisitions, and operations continues doing their deal, their function, independent from acquisitions. So you always have a full pipeline. Okay, just a few terms that I want to just kind of review. A lot of this we talked about throughout this training. The first one is acquisitions. Acquisitions, remember, is the function or department of the flipping business that is responsible for acquiring or getting a deal under contract to purchase. That's acquisitions, everything that goes into that. Operations is on the other side of the business model. It's the function or department of the flipping business responsible for wholesaling or fixing and flipping the deal. So funding, managing, marketing, and sales once a deal has been acquired. Now, a very common term that we're going to use all the time is after repair value, or ARV or ARV. And that is just the retail market price that the property will sell for after it's fixed up. So it's the subject property, it's the lead we're looking at. The ARV is that retail market price once it's fixed up. And CMA, we used that term earlier, it's a comparative market analysis. That's just a report that's provided by real estate agents based on the market activity. So they'll go back and look at sold, pending, and active comparables, and they'll do this report, and they'll tell you the value of the property based on that data. Okay, and then again, just some real estate agency terms that are really important that you understand how this works. Listing agent is when a seller hires an agent to sell the property. They're called the listing agent. The buyer's agent is the buyer who has an agent to represent them, and their job is to find them, negotiate, and help them purchase a property. The MLS is a private listing board. It stands for Multiple Listing Service. It's only accessible to licensed agents. A commission is typically when the seller agrees to pay 6%. Now, that's not fixed or set in stone, but that's kind of typically how it works. And the commission is the fee that the agents get, 3% to the listing agent and usually 3% to the buyer's agent. On market just means once a property is listed, it becomes public knowledge, such as Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Redfin, and so on. That means it's on market. It just means it's listed for sale with a real estate agent. Okay, so those are some of our key terms, and be sure to take the quiz, and I look forward to having you on the next training. So get with your coach, make sure you get the next training unlocked for you so that you can go through that week 3 training. Okay, Jerry Norton here. Talk to you soon.